the biggest, I guess, low hanging fruit would be number one, building out your LinkedIn profile. And obviously that's your personal profiles that are attached to that business as well as the company page.
Yeah.
Making it, think of it as like, whether it's your personal profile or your company page, think of it as a landing page. If someone comes here, what are the things you can add there where they feel compelled to continue doing more research or maybe click into your website or reach out to you.
All right, welcome to another episode with Bruce Merrill of Cleverly.co. It was really kind of fun to kind of dive in and look under the hood of about 6 months ago for Applause Lab, which was the previous product I served. The main things every business needs is new customers. And kind of a unique value proposition in the market, not only price-wise, positioning, built some really, really cool systems on the front end as well as their service as well. So I reached out to Bruce. It's actually his first public interview ever, which is really early. And you'll notice in this episode, similar to that. So whenever you see a breakdown kind of episode, that pretty much means documented everything. So from A to Z of the breakdown, how they onboarded people, what did they say during experience, what kind of emails did they send, what was the final delivery, documenting some of these takeaways, etc., that you could then apply and get to know Bruce over at Cleverly. All right, welcome to another episode of Productized Snacks. Today I am with Bruce Merrill of Cleverly.co. Bruce, welcome to the show, man.
Glad to be here. It's exciting. It's one of the first podcasts I've ever done, actually. So.
Oh man, cool.
Yeah.
Well, excited to capture, just hear and share a little bit about what you're building, because I think it's pretty special, and you guys have seen some awesome growth. So I'm excited to share that with the audience. The first question I'd like to kind of start with regarding your business, what type of business problems are you paid to solve?
Yeah, so I think there's multiple different things in terms of the service aspect of our business, but if you were to boil it down and just to simplify it, I think what we're really paid to solve is to help small and medium-sized businesses really break through and crack through and stand out from the crowd when it comes to starting genuine and authentic conversations with their ideal buyers on LinkedIn. What we found is a lot of small businesses really have that problem. They kind of revert to all the different channels out there, especially if you're B2B. LinkedIn, is the place to go in terms of finding your ideal buyer. But in terms of the services, and the reason why people pay us is for our back-end expertise when it comes to the right strategy, building out and finding their qualified prospects or ideal buyers on LinkedIn using Sales Navigator. And then lastly, the biggest thing that connects everything is really the copywriting. How do you write conversational and personal messages that hit at a couple different things, pain points, make sure to have social proof for credibility, and really have call to actions in a very short manner where someone can read it in a few minutes or a couple minutes, and then they're compelled to respond because they may or may not have that problem. So strategy, targeting lists, and copywriting is really what we're paid to solve, and then send that out for our clients on a daily basis.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm excited to hear a little bit more of what you guys have built out for LinkedIn specifically there. But what's kind of the journey been for you? Is this kind of your first big company, or tell me a little bit about how you got started kind of, and then how it led up to Cleverly?
Yeah. So in terms of my background, Cleverly is, pretty much the first company I founded. I tried a couple other things, but they're really small, never actually had any clients. So it was kind of just testing. But in terms of signing up clients and having a real business, Cleverly is the first one. In terms of my background, actually right out of high school, I got accepted to the Naval Academy. So went there and did my first 2 years, freshman, sophomore year, and realized it just wasn't for me, just kind of that entire environment. So it was a big decision, decided to drop out. And I was just lucky that my brother was founding a tech startup here in LA. They're still up based in Marina Del Rey, called Lease Lock. So he kind of took me under his wing, slept on his couch for probably 9 months to a year, not making any money, but just seeing where I can add value. And really just became a sponge, learning everything about sales and marketing, because that's what he needed at the time. And then throughout that process, he just had, I think $500,000 in seed funding. I was with Leaselock for 2-3 years. They ended up raising a
Okay.
Series A of 10 million, and really a lot of that raise was built on the back of the leads and the closed deals that we generated, and most of them were coming off of direct LinkedIn outreach.
Oh,
So
wow.
got burnt out there, but I saw that the opportunity of like actually talking with and engaging with your ideal buyers and setting meetings and closing deals, the full cycle, all done on LinkedIn. I saw that as a huge opportunity that most businesses, especially if you're B2B, could take advantage of. And then that's where the idea of Cleverly came about. And from there, it's just been an optimization process to get to where we are right now.
Did they end up using Cleverly after you left?
Yeah, so I
Okay,
left,
cool.
started the company, figured out the processes, and then my brother brought me back on as one of our first clients, as
Dude,
quote
nice.
unquote as a company, and did really well. We actually have a case study of them on our website, so huge factor in terms of proof of concept and just showing that this could be a viable business model.
Nice. I love it. And how old is Cleverly um, right now?
So as of right now, we're around 3 years old. I think we just passed the
Okay.
3 year mark. And yeah, really just you know, just it didn't always start as the service you see on the site. It's everything I think is just adapting to the market, testing different price points, testing different
Yeah.
service options, and
What did it start at as originally that's different from where it is now?
yeah. So we started as a full service kind of growth hacking or growth hacking agency,
Okay.
doing kind of everything. If you signed up with us, we tried to figure out how to do LinkedIn automation, or LinkedIn outreach, cold email outreach, cold calling, direct mail, and try to
Yeah.
piece everything together. Obviously, charging a lot more, upwards of $5,000 a month. Really figured out that it wasn't scalable. We signed up a handful of clients, but it just became too much to manage, and it was really hard to continue building on our client base. And then we just doubled down on LinkedIn because that's where we saw most of our results coming from at the end of the day. And then then we figured out this more affordable product that with the right systems in place could be scaled up.
No, I love it, man. Well, walk me through a little bit like of the model because a lot of the people I interview, as you know, on the show are building service businesses like you, and their goal is like productizing their service, right? So it can
Mm-hmm.
scale, which is systematizing, building processes. Did you know that you were kind of moving in that direction of productizing the service? Because you talked a little bit about going from agency to, essentially now, which is a very niche focus, essentially productized service that's
Yeah.
unable to scale. Walk me through kind of what that looked like, or if that was in your mind at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, talking with you, productized services is actually the first time I heard that
Okay.
terminology. But now thinking back, it's very aligned with what we were trying to do. Um, I think the biggest thing was if you're gonna, you know, undercut the market and really have an affordable price point where your margins aren't as fat maybe as other companies doing the same thing. I think the biggest thing is to figure out, hey, one, how do you get the client acquisition funnel, and then from there, how do you figure out the right systems in place, and the right tools you need to, I guess, push people through your client journey. So signing up, going through onboarding, getting their campaign deliverables, going through a approval process, finally getting launched, and then from there, what does the client journey look like after they launch their first campaign when it comes to optimization and making sure they're seeing better results as time goes on. I think take it back, the biggest thing you need is, or for us was figuring out, okay, what is the right platform to build this productized service on? If you don't have your platform, so LinkedIn, number one. Number
Yeah.
two, how do we automate and a lot of this with the right tools? So that's partnering with, the right, I guess, LinkedIn automation tools instead of us having to build out everything from scratch, find the right partner that could take our vision and our feedback we're getting from clients and actually apply it into optimizing the tool over time. And then lastly, what are the other tools outside of the service that you need to really grow the business? Everything from, using Stripe, Slack,
Yeah.
Monday.com, Zapier to make everything talk. That was a big factor. And then I think the last thing is really finding the right people that are specialized in the unique things that you're providing for the client. For us, copywriters, targeters, onboarders, and account managers.
What's where do you see like kind of the lowest hanging fruit for, because so many people are trying to get on LinkedIn now. There's a lot of tools and a lot of services similar to maybe Cleverly, and I think you guys do it probably very well, if not near the top of being the best. What do you see kind of like recommendation wise, if for a business to just generate more conversations on LinkedIn in general?
Yeah, I would. The biggest, I guess, low hanging fruit would be number one, building out your LinkedIn profile. And obviously, that's your personal profiles that are attached to that business as well as the company page.
Yeah.
Making it, think of it as like, whether it's your personal profile or your company page, think of it as a landing page. If someone comes here, what are the things you can add there where they feel compelled to continue doing more research or maybe click into your website or reach out to you directly. So I think for most people, and what we've seen a lot of clients come through our door is that a lot of the engagement and your response rate and connection acceptance rate, a lot of that boils down to how well your LinkedIn profile is actually put together, right? So this is not like a cold email where you get sent a cold email. It's really hard to do more research into the person
Yeah.
you're emailing. But a LinkedIn profile, if I message you directly on LinkedIn and the message resonates, you're going to go click into my profile and do more research. And if my profile is aligned with what I'm talking about and maybe shows a lot of credibility, there's a higher likelihood you're going to accept my connection request or respond to my message. So that would be number one, just optimizing your LinkedIn profile to speak to your
Nice.
target audience. And then Sales Navigator, I think, would be the second thing that I think $80 a month, whether or not you're using LinkedIn automation. If you can learn the ins and outs of Sales Navigator, you can really build qualified lists of your ideal buyers that you
Man.
maybe you've never known about.
No, I love that. Well, give us a sense of kind of size wise, what does Cleverly look like if we look at like a monthly recurring revenue standpoint, or if you want to share a range, what does that kind of look like of where you guys are at today?
Yeah. So today we're in the ballpark of 350 to 450 in terms of MRR. We've been growing steadily, even with COVID hitting the US in March pretty
Yeah.
hard. I guess we were fortunate enough where we continued our growth trajectory of about 5 to 10% month over month growth. It was very top heavy when we started because it was a lot, you were just signing up clients and that monthly recurring. And then, so we were growing like 100% in the first 3 to 6 months, and then it started tapering out. So this
Yeah.
year's been a steady 5 to 10%. And my goal by the end of the year is being closer to 500K in MRR.
Man, I love that. And how did you guys come up, or maybe talk a little bit about like what does pricing look like for like a business that's kind of come up and sign up with you? And how do you look at pricing and kind of positioning in the market where you have a lot of competition per se in many ways?
Yeah, yeah, and this is a really competitive market, and I guess you can break it down into two different types of competitors. You have your just automation tools that we compete with,
Yep.
where someone can sign up with the tool and do all the work themselves, build out the list, write the copy, and send it out. And then we have the other LinkedIn lead generation agencies that offer a very similar service, maybe in their own unique style. I think the biggest thing when it came to pricing was what were our goals when we were kind of starting this. And our biggest, I guess, our mission is to like provide an affordable service so that the barrier to entry is very low for a business, a B2B business, if they do want to test something out on LinkedIn. And then in terms of the actual price points, we actually started off being not making any money in terms of we were probably unprofitable And we started off with the $99 price point, no setup fee. We had one plan. And from there, once we realized we can continue signing up, we could sign up clients at that price point, and we knew the demand was there. Now it's all about how do we maybe build out a couple more options at a higher monthly price so we are profitable, and then try
Yeah.
to bring people in and test out those other price points and what other value we can add, and hopefully more people sign up with the higher prices than the lower. And then since then, it's really just optimization after you build up that confidence of acquiring a client. And once you feel like you have the value there based on the feedback and the experience your clients are telling you about, okay, how do you increase prices so it just becomes a viable business model?
Nice. And I know obviously as you guys are growing 5 to 10% a month, which is awesome. What does kind of churn look like? If you guys kind of know some of those numbers, does business usually come on, stay a while? Like what is kind of the lifetime value and churn rate look like in a
Yeah.
business like this?
So, lead generation in general is really hard in terms of keeping clients on. And I think the number one thing what we realized is figuring out who are the best clients for us, right? A very top of funnel. How do we market to and only sign up the right clients? We went through a phase where we were pretty much accepting everybody, and we've gotten better to identify who the right clients is.
Nice.
But in terms of churn rate, that's, to be honest, we have a lot of the client acquisition side funnel figured out. And I would probably put 80% of our focus right now is how do we provide our clients with a better experience, get them better results, and keep them a lot longer so we become part of their technology stack or their
Yeah.
vendor list. We're sitting around a 10% churn rate right now. Our goal by the end of the year, which we feel is very possible, is actually get it to under 5%, and maybe even by early next year a negative churn rate where we have more upsells or cross sells than in
Yeah.
terms of
Yeah.
revenue than clients churning out. So it's been huge focus. We know that in terms of sustaining growth, you can't just always sign up new clients and try to replace all the clients leaving. Now it's about how do we keep all the clients that we work so hard to
100%.
yeah. So it's just
No, I love that, man. I think, and I like kind of where your thought process is around it as well. When I work with a lot of service businesses, where I'm trying to get them in the mindset of like, how can you think of your business, your service business as a SaaS company? And think of in recurring revenue, lifetime value,
mhm.
expansion revenue, net negative return, retention. It's cool to kind of hear you talking and like thinking in that way, because yeah, the more
Yeah.
you can move in that direction, like it's going to be an awesome business, but it's also going to be a lot more valuable
Yeah,
as well.
and to that point, one of my mentors actually said that we were a month-to-month service, cancel anytime for like our first year,
Yeah.
and the issue with that was that our product commitment wasn't aligned with wasn't aligned with the value we're giving to clients. So we realized that really for someone to reap the real benefits of this type of service, they have to at least be on with us for 3 months.
Yeah.
And once we realized that, although our close rate went down a little bit from that initial sales call, obviously people don't want to be on a 3-month commitment. When we implemented that, we figured out that more qualified and better clients were signing up that understood that B2B sales is a long-term game, 3 to 12 month sales cycles. So we just aligned our monthly commitment to hopefully lower our churn, as well
Yeah.
as make sure people see the full value and get acclimated to our services before ever making a decision if they want to keep using us or not.
Yeah, I love it. It's just a long-term mindset. Like I'm personally happy with close rate going down if I'm capturing a higher quality
Yeah,
customer and your lifetime value and everything goes up
just
on the back end.
drastically grow. And yeah, and what we've seen since we did that monthly commitment, our LTV actually doubled um,
Wow.
since making that change in early of this year. So it's been great success, and really it just goes. It's a simple math equation, right? Now that we have some more data, we can see that, yeah, close rate down, we're not closing as many clients, but the revenue generated and the profit generated is a lot higher than we would have seen if we continue with the month-to-month cancel anytime offering.
Nice. And how do you guys look at acquiring customers for Cleverly? Do you guys do it through all LinkedIn, or is there some other channels as well?
Yeah, I think so. We started obviously very heavy in using our own services and what we knew, reaching
Yep.
out to people directly on LinkedIn. And I think we just evolved over time to one, diversify our acquisition channels, everything from LinkedIn, LinkedIn outreach to LinkedIn paid ads, Google ads, Facebook, and really just figured out, okay, how do we test all these different channels? How do we make these tests, I guess, trackable? And then
Yeah.
if a channel is doing really well and we like the cost per acquisition, obviously if we're tracking it well, how do we double down on it? And then throughout this process is really, we have, I guess, in terms of the biggest channels we see right now are, due to the nature of our service, we get a lot of organic referrals from clients reaching out to all their friends saying you should use Cleverly. But also when we're starting a conversation with the client and their ideal prospect, in that first phone call, there's sometimes a conversation about how did you find out about me? And then our client isn't scared to say, hey, we were actually using a LinkedIn lead generation agency called Cleverly. And then
Yeah.
that prospect ends up becoming a client just through that natural, it's an easy way to start a conversation. So really
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to figure out how to build our referrals and then our paid ads, because that's the only way in terms of scalability. If we can figure out our paid ads, that's how we're going to acquire clients at a lot faster rate.
Yeah, no, 100. I think that'll be really interesting. I don't know if I tell you, one of my really good friends who also is on the podcast, Clayton, he runs thehoth.com, and it's like an SEO white label
Yeah,
service for agencies.
I think I've seen it. Yeah,
Yeah, so they do about, I think they just closed last month, 2.5 million
that's
a
awesome.
month. And one thing that he mentioned that really unlocked a lot of their growth was figuring out paid ads specifically on Facebook. And he really was able to dial that in. And once he got that to click, that was like the
Hmm.
next driver of like, I think when he went from like 700K a month to over a million a month to 2
Wow.
million a month. So it
Yeah.
is interesting. And like the scale aspect, once you kind of have operations down on the service side, what you can do. So it's definitely cool. And I know you guys will, I'm sure, figure out kind of what that looks like. Walk me through a little bit, because you alluded to it a little when we talked before I hit record here, that you guys, one of the things you're doing is really working on customer experience, expectation setting, onboarding. How do you think about doing that? Because I think whenever you're selling, let's say, leads, performance, you're kind of, in many ways, you mentioned you're selling conversations top of funnel, but I think a lot of people that, or whether they're doing Facebook ad or lead generation or even SEO, they can get caught up in an interesting pickle at the beginning when they don't set expectations right with customers. And I think you guys do this really well. So how do you think about that and go about bringing a new customer on and ensuring that they are on the same page with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that actually starts on the initial sales call.
Yeah.
So it's on the sales call. It's really obviously figuring out what the right pain points of that prospect is, and then see if we're the right fit for them, if they fit our qualified client criteria. And then once that's done, explain to them the Cleverly onboarding and client success process. And then with that, it's introing them to the world of LinkedIn, where the LinkedIn is most valuable when you use it. I guess your mindset is building relationships first, and then after a relationship has been built, leveraging that relationships or that new relationship for a sales opportunity when the timing is right. Most B2B sales cycles are really a lot of it depends on timing, where you
Yeah.
can't force anyone, especially if you're selling a lot higher ticket. So the biggest thing we did in terms of revamping our onboarding and client success journey was the minute we say it on the sales call, we reinforce it on their first onboarding call with us with a nice little slide deck, introducing them to the world of LinkedIn and what they should expect. And then really just honing down and asking them like, are you okay if our goal is to open doors for you? And what that means is get responses, and based on that type of response, interested, neutral, negative, you know that your job is to figure out a way to build a relationship, a genuine relationship with your ideal buyer, even if they're not ready to buy right now. Early on, a lot of people were expecting us to just get them a bunch of leads that are going to close right away. And because we never set those expectations. And now that we are doing that, people are, they understand it because it makes sense from just a logical point. Like no one, if you do cold outreach to anyone, you're trying to convince them to work with you. They're not going to your website and clicking the contact us form. So it's just about adding as much value as possible, showing that you could be a resource. And then on top of that, if they're not looking for your solution, maybe if you figure out a pain point that they do have, how could you refer them to the right place or point of contact to just make sure you're always adding value at the end of the day? Because that company or that person may or may not come back to you one day and say, hey, the time is right, we're vetting new CRMs, and you were the first person I thought of because of how helpful you were when I was looking for this particular solution. So it's really just honing in on defining what a lead is, really making sure terminology is all set so we're all on the same page, and explaining that LinkedIn is about building real relationships, and our clients, need to understand that if they're ever going to see any sort of success in terms of actually closing deals down the line in that 2, 3, 6 month time frame of using us.
Yeah, no, 100%. When you look back, kind of building this over the last 3 years, Bruce, what's kind of been your biggest, I wouldn't say failure, but struggle or issue with building this type of business, and kind of what have you learned from it so far?
Yeah, so me personally would probably be along the lines of, our hiring process and the people we're bringing on the team, and not realizing early on how important that is. When you're first starting off with very limited resources, you're just trying to get anybody to fill whatever specific role you need. And, that's what you have to do to survive at the time. But, you got to adapt really quick once you do have the resources and bandwidth to start building out a recruiting and hiring funnel where you're vetting the right people, asking them the right question, scoring them, tracking them, and then only bringing on people that you think are would be the right fit with the right skill sets for that particular role, and then not having ego tied back to it if it doesn't work out and you're just prolonging and you believe that we can figure it out. So I think my biggest challenge was, one, finding the right people and vetting them thoroughly, and then also when we do hire people, really just making the decision that sometimes it doesn't work out, and you have to let go of people fast, because at the end of the day, the people that are going to suffer are everyone else on the team and the clients if that person's not upholding the standard, or so on and so forth. It's not the skills needed to meet the demands of that role. And it's been a process. We're doing better. We got some tools to help us with that. We'll see how it goes. I don't think we're anywhere close to where we want to be, but taking the step in the right direction.
What are you guys using, if you wouldn't mind sharing? I guess you mentioned some tools like for, I'm assuming, hiring and recruiting maybe, or?
Yeah, so one, we actually use our own services for recruiting.
Okay,
we do a nice list of, let's call it, we're hiring for an account manager right now. Do a nice list of account managers and maybe sales executives who we think would be a good fit, reach out to them with a 4-touch drip campaign and see if we can get them interested. And then the second thing, another tool that we just started using is called Spark Hire, where you basically can set up a automated video interview process where before they even get to a phone call interview, where, it takes a lot of the bandwidth, especially from the executives, they need to complete this video interview of 10 questions where they record themselves answering questions in a specific time limit, depending on the question. And then we leverage that into saying, okay, based on this guy's answers and how he answered our questions, knowing what we're looking for, do we want to push this person forward into a phone interview? And then if they do well in the phone interview, we usually have some sort of mock or test. For example, account manager, we call it a mock onboarding call, where we tell them, here's the rules, this is what we're looking for. And we just role play on a 30-minute, 1 hour call, pretending to be a client. And then based on what they know about Cleverly, they have to onboard us and set the right expectations and tell us what we need to know about Cleverly. So I think it's a lot of just checks and balances, but number one is also identifying the skills needed in each individual role. And then how do you test for that in a very thorough way? So
that's cool. No, thanks for sharing that. I'll definitely check that out. It sounds really cool. I think, yeah, that's always a tough one, hiring and training and just finding the right people, man. It's a very common hurdle across any business.
100%, especially if you're in the service, even productized service, like our business depends on people. We're an agency at the end of the day. Yep. So more clients, the more people we need. And, maybe until we figure out our own software that doesn't need any people, but that's not coming anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, scalable productized services definitely, they leverage tech, but a big part is built on people. If we look back on kind of when you first started, if you remember, like, how did you get that first $1,000 in revenue or those first 10 customers? What did that look like?
Yeah, in terms of the Cleverly low cost affordable model, when we were really trying to build that up, we read a book, me and my co-founder read a book, it's called Building Your Story Brand. It's by Donald Miller. And in this book, it really just talks about how to attract and send the right message to, your ideal buyers based on the words you use and the layout of your website. And then we just took everything to heart from the book. We applied every single thing. That book, there was like 7 main steps. We applied everything to our website at the time. Obviously it looks a lot different than it does right now, but we still hold a lot of those key values. And then we just tested, a $500 Google ad budget, a $500 Facebook ad budget, and with, some generic ads I probably created on Photoshop or Canva or something, tested that $1,000 budget. And we saw, from the initial $1,000 that we spent, we had like 25 to 30 booked meetings. And I got on the phone, out of that 25, 30, like 80% of them closed on that $99 price point. So the minute that happened in that first month, January 2019, the light bulb went off that like, this is scalable. I mean, this is a service that people want. Now it's just about tweaking it and refining it to something that's scalable. So just did a test, built out the website, the foundation, ad budget, and then was able to attract people to book a call and was able to close on those first 30, 20 calls that we took.
Wow. So really the current version or the current offering has really been around for about 1.5 years. Is that right?
Yeah. So in terms of the model right now. Yep.
No, it makes a ton of sense. Yeah. And then before that, it was more of an agency type of.
A lot higher price points.
Yep. No, it makes sense, man. No, that's really cool. It was the same thing for us when we launched or was doing full agency with my old business, which was in the content writing space. And then we really niched down and productized it over the years. And that's what allowed us to like really build something scalable.
Yeah. It's just, I think really just like finding where the opportunity is and, where most of the results are, and then just kind of doubling down and seeing if this is scalable. And if it's not, at least you learn what doesn't work, and then you just try to move on to the next thing.
No, for sure. If we look at your business right now, what's kind of the biggest problem that you're facing in Cleverly at the moment that you would easily pay someone to help you solve?
I think that goes back to client retention and, a very well thought out and thorough customer journey that's dynamic for every customer type, right? So we have people coming through our flow that just get results right off the bat, and they do really, really well. And then we have the, the opposite, where they come in high expectations and maybe their campaign isn't performing well. So really just someone that understands, I guess, cleverly and what we're doing, and then helping us to build out the ideal customer journey for each type of client based on trigger points or feedback we're getting from them in that journey that they're going through. And then making sure everything from marketing to client success and account management is aligned across the board using the same terminology. It's really tough now that we have 25 people, making sure that, and we're just changing everything pretty much on a daily basis. Everyone's synced up on the same page at all times. So that would
tough
be.
when you start having a lot of people, then it's like one change is like a little cascade effect across everything.
Especially right now when everyone's remote. So we just got to really dial in on communication. But I think the biggest thing is getting our churn rate down to where we need it to be, or where we want it to be, to continue our growth trajectory. Because there's going to be a point, if it doesn't get better, we just plateau.
No, that makes sense. And I think they play off each other, right? Like when you can dial in that customer experience and customer journey, you're going to have a better customer, that you're going to have a lower churn rate. So
absolutely.
I think that's a good example of tackling the real problem instead of the symptom,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the symptom's a churn rate, but the problem is,
and it's tough, man. Right? Yeah, it's tough. Like we read, everyone on our exec team read a book called Never Lose a Customer Again. Yep. And we're trying to do the same thing. Yeah, trying to apply it. And it's extremely hard because we have a system. Now it's like, how do we take everything we're learning and then add it into the system that's already working? And it, piecing those, it would be a lot easier if we didn't have a whole company and we were building it from scratch than trying to change out, pieces here and there and then testing what's working and what's not. So it just makes it a little bit more complex. I wish I knew how important client retention and the customer journey is while we first started Cleverly.
Oh man, yeah. No, I think you guys are on a good path now, but it's hindsight is always 2020. Let's say Cleverly, you just woke up tomorrow and the business tripled overnight. You guys just got that many customers. What breaks in Cleverly and how do you fix it?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is we have all the tools, automation, like our platform and everything we built out can support that many. I guess, 3x the customer base we have right now. What we can't support at the moment is call slots and bandwidth, human capital needed to service each client. So what would break is we'd have a lot of angry clients not being able to book their onboarding call or their strategy calls or their check-in call for months out because there's not enough call slots in a day. So we would probably find a recruiting agency or a partner to start pumping in, high quality talent and training them and everything. So, which is, knock on wood, I hope that would be nice to happen for revenue, but in terms of what our clients would experience, it probably wouldn't be a good experience for those new guys coming on.
How do you look at hiring people versus new customers coming on? Like, do you guys think about like the X number of customers we need to be hiring or have this many people in the queue to hire?
That's a really good question. I guess from maybe a couple months ago till when we first started, it was really just based on need. We would have a good idea of everyone's bandwidth on the team and where the support is needed and the bandwidth is needed for our clients. And then now we're getting into a more data-driven approach. So we realize that pretty much for every 250 to 300 new clients we bring on, we need another account manager. And then if for every new sales rep we bring on, we need one more, we need a new onboarding campaign strategist or onboarding person to support the new deals being closed. So it depends on the trigger points. Obviously, everything is dependent on our current client base and how many new deals we're closing. So we're just trying to figure out what are the hard numbers right now, and that we found that sweet spot, 250 to 300 new clients equals we should be looking for a new hire, or we should have already hired somebody.
Hmm. No, that's cool. No, I think, yeah, finding those ratios across the board with customers and hires, I think is really, really important. Um, so I think that's awesome that you guys kind of have starting to build out a little system there. So if
Yeah,
you get a
we're,
spike, you can kind of adjust, right?
100%. And then, we have other trigger points where we know that we're closing too many clients for our current team and we don't have anyone that's about to get on board and trained. Then we just lower marketing spend, less sales calls, less activity, so we
Kind of
can
catch back
kind of
up.
get everyone caught back up, which is kind of where we are right now. We just hired 4 new people and they're all going through our training system, where it takes about a month and a half for them to be ramped up. And that means that we don't have that bandwidth to support as many new deals coming in. So
Hmm.
we're just going through a whole training phase where we are going to sacrifice a little bit of revenue maybe for Q3, so that, and the whole goal is that we're fully prepared when Q4 hits or Q1 of 2021. We have the right team and the right systems in place to scale at a faster rate.
No, I love it, man. What are your thoughts? I mean, some people might say, like, it's somewhat risky to kind of be channel dependent when you look at LinkedIn in some ways. Do you think about that as you're building this kind of on LinkedIn, you're playing in their playground? How do you look at that? Or do you even think about that at all as you build this business?
No, absolutely. I think about it probably every day. It is, in terms of a business model, high risk. I'd probably put it in, compared to being more diversified across different channels. And really part of our, I guess, me and my co-founder, part of our goals this year is to really find the right people, put them in the right places, so that we can start allocating more of our bandwidth to building out other services that aren't dependent on LinkedIn, that are complementary to what we're doing for our clients, content, SEO, whatever the case is, trying to build out a different revenue stream, so that, if push came to shove and LinkedIn, for whatever reason, made a massive update where we can't run our services anymore, we have another option that's, making the business money and hopefully profitable. So that's a huge initiative right now, is how do we diversify our risk and, just make sure that the company is going to be alive in the next 5 years.
No, I like that, man. I think it kind of leads me to the next question, and something I've been thinking about, because LinkedIn, I love. I'm actually a customer of you guys, so I'm excited to kind of use you more to grow one of my other service businesses. But how do you think about like omni-channel approaches? Because you kind of alluded to, like, one way to get off LinkedIn is building out these other services. I had a great call, I think a week ago, with the head sales guy at Mailshake, which is a cold email software. And they've added a lot of different things into their product to kind of diversify from just cold email, where they have something that will connect to LinkedIn now. They also have like a ringless voicemail, a call thing you can just call right from their platform. But I see this popping up in other ways as well, where there's services now and they're having a multi-touch kind of process. One, I think maybe it's more effective, but also a way probably to diversify from just cold email or just LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Is that kind of what you're thinking about when you look at like expanding kind of from LinkedIn a little?
absolutely. In my opinion, the way everything is moving now, because there's all these different channels, different ways to reach your ideal buyer, is
Yep.
the omni-channel approach. If you're B2B and you're selling something that's a little bit higher ticket, upwards of a few $1,000s a month, you need to have that different touch points, because that's where you maximize your opportunity to, build relationships and get responses and drive people through your sales pipeline. So for any company, just like how we do it to acquire our clients, we acquire clients in different channels. I think for most B2B companies, they should think through, their top 10 channels and really test every single one. But on top of that, I think the next phase of lead generation in general is some sort of system that can combine every single touch point. So you have one universal platform for accountability and tracking, that shows you cold call, email, LinkedIn message, direct mail, everything in one. So you have that full visibility. I don't think anyone's really done it. And if there's companies out there that have done it, are doing it right now, it's probably not as put through as, it could be. But I think that's really the next phase. It's like, it's just having that complete approach when you're trying to get in front of your ideal buyer.
Yeah, no, I like that, man. I think I agree. That's kind of where things are going. And, like from How to Never Lose a Customer again, he talks about a lot of these different multi-touch points and gifts and thank you cards.
Text messages are huge, right? Like
ringless voicemail. Like there's some cool stuff you can do.
Yeah. Now it's just how do you make them all talk and put them in a system that makes sense.
The hard part.
Yeah. I'll let you know if I come across a company that does that.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a couple like companies that are doing like a little bit, integrating at least like maybe two or three touch points, right?
Yeah, it's usually stitched together through Zapier, where they have different platforms for each, and then they make it all talk through some integration platform. But I haven't seen one platform that can kind of just do it all for you and just show you everything right there.
Yeah, it would be pretty sweet. I'm sure people are, it's evolving in that direction. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what outbound looks like, and
in 5 years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've got a couple more questions. I know we got a hard stop here soon, but I was curious just really quick on, because you guys white label your service as well. What percentage of your business is white labeled to, let's say, other agencies that are reselling your service?
Yeah, it's in that 10 to 15% mark when you're just talking straight revenue. We saw it as an opportunity early on, had a lot of interest doing it before we offered it. And then we just built it out and saw if it was something that was viable. And, we realized that we're not focusing on growing it because it's kind of organic growth, but it's really picking the right partners and the right agencies that have the funnel of clients that they're already working with that are looking to get into LinkedIn lead gen. And also how do we, mask cleverly on the back end so they don't feel like this is a white labeled service. It's been a process, and a couple of times we actually were debating on cutting it completely, but just decided to figure it out, and glad we did.
Nice. No, that's great, man. Well, cool, man. What's as you guys grow cleverly, what's been your favorite tool on the back end to kind of run the business?
So I was thinking about this question. I would probably put two different tools. No, I would say three different tools that helped us do exactly what we need to do. And that is Slack. So Slack, obviously, for internal communication, Monday.com for project management, and then Front App for client communication. And a lot of people don't know about Front App because they're a fairly new company, I think in the past 2-3 years. But what it is imagine if you had Slack, but for email, for Gmail, where it aggregates everyone in your company's email addresses. And then it allows you to create different folders and buckets. So if you have a customer support team, everybody that's a customer support rep, all their emails get sent to the customer support folder, and it provides full visibility and transparency. So if I want to search up a client's email address, I can see every single person on my team that's ever emailed this client in any of their individual inboxes or any team inbox. So the minute we signed up for Front, and this was just like 3-6 months ago, our entire business changed. We were very inefficient. We had everyone was logging in and logging out of their inboxes, team inboxes. Now you log into Front and you have access to everybody's email inboxes and also that client communication. And then on top of that, you're allowed to chat And whenever you get a new email, you can add someone in your company, just like you can add someone in Slack, in that same email thread where you're commenting on the email thread, but the client on the other side never sees what your comments are until you figure out what's the right response. And then finally you send the email, and that's the only thing that the client sees. So front app,
Yeah.
Huge. Front app, Monday.com, Slack. Couldn't run our business without either one of those tools.
Very cool, man. Well, I want to be conscious of your time, and really appreciate sharing the Cleverly journey, man. It's been pretty cool to hear, and still some more questions, but we'll have to circle back maybe,
Yeah,
in a little bit and see, get part 2 and see where you guys go.
Maybe some update on progress. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on here, Tyler. So like I said, first podcast in the books. Great experience. I love the questions you asked. So they were very detailed and thorough. So yeah.
Awesome. Dude, yeah, thanks, man. What's the best place for people to find you, follow what you guys are up to, or you specifically?
Follow me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Bruce Merrill. That's probably the best place. I'm not as active as I should be on the platform, but that, or just hit me up directly via email, bruce@cleverly.co, if you want to chat around anything. So
awesome. Thanks so much, Bruce.
Thanks, Tyler. Have a good one, man.
You too.
All right. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you found the content valuable, here are 2 ways that I can help you actually completely free to grow and scale your service business. Number 1, just head over to productized.services, and you'll be able to subscribe to our free weekly strategy newsletter. And number 2, get my Productized playbook over at productizedplaybook.com. And this playbook is actually directly pulled from our recent Design to Exit course, one of the 5 playbooks. And we're giving away that for free, where you get access to kind of see a full breakdown of essentially, how we think about productizing services, etc. So definitely head over to productizedplaybook.com.